Hello and welcome to Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. I'm so glad that you're joining us today to be a part of our podcast. I want to encourage you that if you are listening to this podcast, that you go ahead and subscribe to it and just let us know. Send us questions if you want to communicate or talk to us or ask questions or make comments. You can do that at Gadberry, connect at gadberry.org. I'll say that again, connect at gadberry.org. And then also, if you want to find anything out about our Gadberry Leadership Coaching company or anything that we do, you can go to gadberry.org, and the entire website just explains all of who we are. It'll give you some insight from people who we've worked with, and I think it'll help you a lot. So I would encourage you to do that. Also, if you want to, you can view this on YouTube. If you're listening to it, you can view it on our YouTube channel, which is Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. And we'd love for you to do that as well. And if you do go on YouTube, then please feel free to subscribe and then hit that little bell that will alert you every time we do a podcast. And so we're trying to do these quite consistently, and we want you to be a part. So today we want to talk about something very important. One of the literal concepts and tools that are most effective in a leader's toolbox. And so I want to talk to you about that today. I want to talk to you about the listening leader.
Welcome to Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. We're excited that you're joining our leadership community. There's a lot of information about leadership, but a lot of times it's too sterile for real life. Life is messy and leadership can be messy. Here we talk about real leadership in the context of real life. If you're a leader looking for tips, insight, and wisdom on leadership, you can follow David on social media. And for upcoming group coaching experiences and more, go to gadberry.org. David is the lead pastor of Summit Church in Canyon, Texas, and we would love to invite you to be a part. For more information, go to yoursummitchurch.com. This is the Life and Leadership Podcast.
Do you know what I think makes a great leader? You know, there's a lot of things a lot of ways we describe leaders. We describe leaders as charismatic people, leaders as influential, leaders are people who are able to persuade, leaders are people that you look up to, mentors, etc. I think sometimes we over-characterize leadership as something way up there instead of a concept that we can all use in every level of life and every area of life to help us add value to others. Leadership is something that we all are capable of and can all develop in. You know, at Gadberry Leadership Coaching, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to help every single person we work with discover what their potential is, learn how to develop that potential, hone that skill, hone that craft, take that treasure of potential that's on the inside of them and start mining it out, and then deploy it, how to put it into action, how to get it out in the world. And that's what our goal is. That's what we try to achieve day in and day out. And I can tell you that one of the greatest tools we use to help achieve that in the lives of people who we coach, companies that we coach or individuals that we coach, is this method or concept, even some would even call a technique. And I hate to use any of those terms because honestly, then they seem inauthentic and insincere. But a good leader, a great leader, is a listening leader. I have to be honest that I find that a lot of times leaders are insecure. I have been insecure myself, and we find ourselves in places that we're afraid to listen because we're afraid that someone else might have a better idea, or we're afraid that someone else might expect us to use their idea, or whatever the case may be. And I think the most effective organizations on every level are organizations that are vulnerable, or organizations that are a trust atmosphere and culture. And those are organizations that achieve and accomplish great things because they listen to one another. They're not just always trying to guide, direct, drive from a position of one person having all the authority, one person having all the ideas, one person having all the creativity. I mean, listen to the very idea of that. What happens is literally If one person has all the creativity, one person has all the ideas, one person's driving the whole organization, then what happens is you are limited to that one person. That one person may be highly talented, very gifted, strong, and opinionated. However, they're still only them. So at some point, your organization is going to hit a wall because you will be limited to the capacity of that one person. In an organization that's really going to grow, going to affect positive change, that's going to bring potential out in people and organizations, it's going to take listening. It's going to take leaders listening to other leaders, leaders listening to what some would call constituents, or mentors listening to mentees, or however you want to phrase it, employees listening to bosses, whatever the terminology in your world is. Pastors listening to staff members, or whatever the case may be. Whatever that dynamic is in your world, it requires listening. And what I'm finding, the more I grow and develop as a leader, and the more I experience in life with other leaders, is I'm finding the best leaders, the most effective, the highest impact, the ones adding the most value are excellent in the areas of listening. And if we want to achieve what leadership is, and that is influence, if we really want to influence people, if we really want to take things to another level, if we want to add value to someone's life to such a degree that they will be able to achieve the things that we see in them, and our organization will be able to achieve the things that we're dreaming about, then that happens only through really, really excellent listening. So there are many ways we listen, and most of them don't really result in truly hearing people, but they do end in frustration for everyone. We know we need to listen, but I think a lot of times we don't. We give this attitude, or maybe even method. We use methods that make it feel like we're listening, but we're not really hearing what our people are saying. And what this does is it doesn't actually help them to feel heard. It doesn't get all the best ideas on the table. It doesn't bring solutions to problems. It doesn't give feet to vision. It just gives a lot of frustration, because there's nothing worse than someone pretending to hear you, but not really listening to you. Oh, it's horrible. And I have to admit, I've been guilty of it. Those of you who may struggle with some of the things I struggle with ADHD, it is a discipline to listen to people, and you have to teach yourself that, and you have to learn that, but it really is. That's what it is. And so in my past, before I really realized my problem, and before I even, could really take it in, I was starting to develop methods on how to be a better listener. But the truth is, many times I just didn't listen, not because I didn't want to, but there are those in leadership that don't listen because they don't want to. Maybe they're arrogant. Maybe they don't feel like the people that they're listening to have anything real to contribute. And that's sad, isn't it? Why would you have people on your team and in your organization that you didn't value their thoughts enough to hear them? Why are they even on your team? If you don't value them that much, why would they be on your team? Makes no sense. Unless, of course, you're one of those leaders who are surrounding themselves with sycophantic followers who are just going to tell you how great you are, and you're not really going to achieve all the things you could, but you will feel great about yourself. And that's not what this is about, because true leadership is about adding value to others. We don't want to just walk in success. We want to walk in significance. It's when we take our success and we become significant with it by adding value to others with the success we have. That's where we want to be as leaders. That leader that doesn't just make a point, but makes a difference. That leader that influences to a degree that it causes people to move from where they are to where they need to be. That kind of leader that can encounter a person that may be stuck in their life and bring out the best in them. That kind of leader that believes in people and sees their potential and does everything they can to work to get that potential out and let that person know you have value. Well, if that's what you really want to do as a leader, then you have to truly actually value people. And the first thing I would say is, if we're not good listeners, that's the message we're sending. Whether we want to send that message or not, whether it's intentional or not, that's the message that people get. When we don't truly listen, the message that people get is that we don't value what they have to say. That's a sad situation, especially if you're not the leader and you're the one being treated that way. So I want to show you, I want to give you an example of maybe I think I have 3 ways that I think we listen that aren't the best. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to overcome that. So the first kind of listening that we do that puts us in this posture of listening, but doesn't actually hear what's being contributed, is passive listening. We're listening, but not really. This kind of listening it's patronizing. In other words, you're pretending to listen so that you'll feel heard, but you're not really hearing what a person's saying. It's passive listening. Like, I really don't care. I'm listening to you in passing. I was listening to an organization not long ago, and that was a real problem for them. The big organization, and the leaders of the organization were saying to the people on the front lines of the organization, hey, we're going to have meetings where we hear what you have to say and hear what you're doing. But it quickly became apparent that that's not what was happening at all. They were having these meetings with these people on the front lines of the organization to make them feel heard. But it was apparent to everyone in these meetings that decisions have already been made, directions have already been planned. You're only listening to us to make us feel like you're listening, but you're not really listening. Being a part of an organization that does that, there's nothing more frustrating. And there's nothing more silly for a leader than that. Because if you have people on the front lines of your organization that they're encountering things that you need to hear, they have their ear to the ground. They know what's going on among the employees. They know what's happening with the customer. They know what's going on real time in your organization and in your business. And for you and I to not listen to them, or to passively listen to them, or to listen to them patronizingly, where they feel like they're being heard, but they're not really being heard, is ridiculous, because there's a lot of gold to be mined there if we would just pay attention, if we would listen, if we'd ask questions, if we would actually not just waste time patronizing a person, but actually hearing them. There's nothing more frustrating. And I got news for you, leaders. If we are passive listeners, then what happens is we think we're pulling one over on somebody, or we think we're making them feel good about themselves. But the truth is, they know. People aren't stupid. I know that a lot of times leaders will view people as dumb sheep that don't know any better. And if I didn't tell them what to do, they wouldn't make any decisions. No. If you're an effective leader, you don't teach people what to think. You teach them how to think. And then you listen when they think and they process and they come up with things, because they may add some value to your organization that could truly revolutionize things. The second way we listen that is not a positive leadership type listening, but just a inappropriate way to listen, is distracted listening. Now, distracted listening is this. Distracted listening is listening, but not to the person talking. You're listening instead to the thoughts in your own head. You're listening about what you're going to respond, how you're going to respond to the person speaking. You're listening to, your thoughts about the situation. You're not hearing where they're coming from at all. You're not listening to their comments. You're literally just listening to your own voice about whatever question you ask or whatever comment. That's a sad state of affairs when you're a leader and you'd rather hear your own voice than listen to the people on your team. And if you find yourself doing that, then you're missing out. And also you're going to lose good people, because good people don't need you to reiterate what you know about what they already know you know. They need you to hear what they're saying, because it'll help them make a contribution to the team. It'll help you know things you don't even know that you don't know. It will enhance opportunities on the team, because they are contributing and they're buying in, because you don't really buy in unless you weigh in. And it's an important thing for us to do. And if we're distracted listening, instead of hearing what someone has to say, we're already thinking about our response, then we're not really listening to them and we're not really hearing them. And you're going to walk away from that meeting with nothing accomplished. So good leaders are leadership listeners, not just passive listeners or distracted listeners. And then the third thing is pretentious listening. And this is a weird one. It's going to sound kind of weird and strange, but man, it's so true. And that is, we're listening from a place of pretense. We're forcing the person speaking to play a pretentious game. A leader who is not themselves but pretends to be something else forces everyone in the organization to play along and in this pretend land, because the entire culture of the organization is inauthentic. You look, when the leader is inauthentic, when the leader is pretending to be something they're not, then the organization becomes a big pretend. It's very pretentious. It's not what it really could be, because the leader is a lot of times the originator of the organization, or the planter of the church, or the whatever. They have enough influence that they have impact on not just their role in the organization, but the culture of the organization. And when a leader is pretentious, then not only are they not being themselves, but they're forcing everyone in the organization to play along. Let me just say this: you cannot build a great building on a faulty foundation. If you build a framework, but you do not have the right foundation, that framework at some point, due to some heavy winds or high pressures, is going to fall over, regardless, because it doesn't have a good foundation. So if you're pretending, if you're not being authentic, if your organization's values aren't authentic, if your organization's vision's not authentic because the organization's leader is inauthentic, then you have a problem. Because now you're not listening to people for what they really can contribute. You're forcing them to play a game. So what they're contributing is phony and false and pretentious itself. So I want to encourage you not to be a passive leader, not to be a distracted leader, and not to be a pretentious leader, but be, or listener, but be a leadership listener, a listener who hears what other people are saying because they're listening to them from their own perspective. They're taking a different point of view. They're looking at the point of view of the person speaking instead of thinking about how they're going to respond from their own filter or from their own view. It's being vulnerable enough to let that happen, being courageous enough to not be afraid of other people's ideas, by actually being excited to hear what your team, who you're drawing potential out of, could come up with when they come together to bring solutions. That should incite pride in us. It should encourage us. It should lift us that someone else would bring something valuable to the team instead of only us always bringing value. And the fact is, if you are not a listener, if you're a passive listener or a distracted listener or a pretentious listener, what happens is you create an environment where no one talks but you. And then all of that value, all of that potential is missed simply because you're limited to an organization of one, which makes no sense at all in terms of leadership. I love what Andy Stanley says. He says, leaders who don't listen will eventually be surrounded by people who have nothing to say. That is a lonely place to be. It's a truly stuck place to be when you get to that place where you finally talked so much and listened so little that no one feels the need to speak because you're not hearing it anyway. It's a horrible place for your organization. It's a horrible place for you as a leader. Listening is a tool for success. It's a skill that we can develop that brings great results. If we learn to listen well, we'll be surrounded with ideas, innovations, empowered people, and a life filled with those contributing great things towards success of your organization. Learning to listen in this way is so powerful. And if we'll do it, if you're the CEO or the president or the pastor or the leader of your organization, whether it's a for-profit or non-profit, if it's a business or if it's a ministry, whatever the case may be, if you practice active listening, how do we active listen? We lean in. We acknowledge that we understand what's being communicated. We ask questions, good questions based on the content that we're hearing from the conversation. We look in people's eyes. We are interested in what they have to say. Our body language says, I'm interested. Our responses say, I'm interested. Our questions say, tell me more. When you actively listen like that and you listen from the perspective of that person, when you hear those things, man, it has so much value. It's literally like you're a miner and you've gone digging for gold and you're pulling out big chunks of gold and prosperity for your organization. That's really where the prosperity is. That's really where the gold is. It's in the people on your team. That's where it's at. It's not some thing to be achieved outside your organization. All those things that will be achieved are achieved as a result of understanding the treasure is in your people. The treasure is in your team. So let's focus in. Let's hone in. Let's not use listening methods in the sense of being inauthentic and trying some, method to let this person know I'm hearing them, but not really hearing them. Let's truly get vulnerable with our teams. Let's truly begin to trust that the reason they're on our team is because they add value to our team and they have something to say. And let's not worry if what they come up with is better than what we come up with. Isn't that what you want? The best solution, the best opportunity, the best idea, the most creative thing, the most innovative thing. You want that to come to the surface? Well, the only way that happens is in a listening environment. And so I want to encourage you, be a leadership listener. It'll always make a huge difference in your organization. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today. Man, it's just a privilege and an honor to have people in our leadership network. And I want to encourage you, please, we believe that the things that we're sharing and the mindset that we have about leadership is effective, and it really adds value to a lot of people. We get a lot of good responses and good results on the businesses that we coach and the individuals that we coach, and it's having an effect. And so I would encourage you to listen to this. And if it helps you at all, if you hear anything in it that, stirs something in you or challenges you or encourages you or teaches you something, then please share it with someone else. Just to hit that share button and find somebody to share it with, friends that you think it may help, and help us, build a network of leaders who really want to learn and grow and develop, and we can all learn and grow and develop together. We believe that the reason that we call this podcast Life and Leadership is because we believe leadership is not something that happens in a vacuum. We believe that leadership is not just a bunch of formulas. We believe that life is messy, so sometimes leadership is messy, and we like to talk about leadership in terms of real life and real leadership. So I believe this can help a lot of people, and I would love for you to help us get the word out. So do me that favor and subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then share it with your friends, and maybe give us a review and let us know what you liked about it or what you heard in it that helped you. And just, help us do what we can to add value to as many people as we can. Thank you so much for being a part of our leadership network. And if you want to know any more about what we're doing, or read blogs about leadership, or find out about what we do in our coaching company, you can go to gadberry.org. Also, you can find us at Gadberry Leadership Coaching on Facebook, and also a Twitter. I think it's Coach Gadberry, and Instagram, it's Gadberry Leadership Coaching. And so feel free to look us up in any of those venues, and just keep adding value to people in your life. Find ways to add value to people. And I can promise you this, it's the only guarantee we make at Gadberry Leadership Coaching, that if you'll add value to people, the greater value will be added to you, guaranteed. Thanks for joining us today. God bless you.